Technologies, powered by Pando, brought to you by Grey Orange, and supported by LSC. We would like to thank our registration partner, MapMyIndia, CX partner Zendex, session partner Shiplight, silver partner Fretron, knowledge partner Supply Chain Labs, and industry partner PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Sriraj Deshmukh, and I will be your host for this session. We are now moving on to our next session on how location technologies help in optimizing both inbound and outbound logistics. I would like to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Mr. Neil Shah, who is the Vice President, Research and Co-founder, Counterpoint Research. Next, I would like to welcome the panelists, Mr. Abhijit Sengupta, Director, Southeast Asia and India at Here Technologies, Mr. Ashok Kumar, Head Supply Chain Replenishment at Britannia, Mr. Bruce Schwack, Chief Communications Officer, Netmeds, Mr. Mayank Talati, Senior Vice President at Swiggy, and last but not the least, Mr. Ling Kangrui, Industry Analyst at ABI Research. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will address a selected few at the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Neil.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is a great time to discuss this topic since we are in middle of a big pandemic, and what it has done is help accelerate our needs to be delivered at home or at enterprises or customer premises, right? So, so the crux of the topic is obviously what different technologies can actually help improve efficiency in terms of logistics, right? So for that to discuss, I have a great panel over here, a great mix of executives, right from Mayank with Swiggy, Mr. Ashok Kumar from Britannia, and we have Abhijit from here, who is actually helping these different companies to optimize their logistics with the location intelligence. And then we have industry expert Kangrui as well from Singapore joining us, who looks at logistics market and provides insights to all of us. So let's dive in. If before we start, maybe we can get a quick introduction from each of you, and especially Mayank and Abhijit and Ashok, if you can also talk briefly about the scale at which you are handling the logistics, right? That is, I know it's mind-boggling, but if you can let us know our viewers as well. So maybe Mayank, you can go first.
Sure. So, the exact numbers I think are confidential, but we do, we do handle millions of orders a day. And at peak, right, when our customers order, we actually evaluate the time promise that we want to give to them. And those we evaluate almost like 2 million customer restaurant combinations per second in order to make sure we surface the right promises and the right restaurants to our customers. So that gives kind of an indication of scale. On the technology side, on the operational side, we have about 150 to 200,000 drivers in our fleet. And the restaurants I don't have off the top of the mind, but we have again it's in the hundreds, thousands of restaurants, right?
And can you quickly just introduce what you do at Swiggy?
Sure. So I handle the marketplace fulfillment platform, which is the entire post-order experience from the time you place the order to the assignment algorithms that try and optimize the efficiency of the fleet, the entire delivery side of the equation where acquisition of drivers, retention, the entire lifecycle management and payout structures, and then the tools for a customer support like the agent workbench and then tracking screen. We provide live tracking of orders for customers, so the tracking screen and chatbots and stuff. And part of our team also is in the pre-order flow, where we indicate the promises to customers. We kind of own that because the promise is something that we are very serious about and try and meet that for the most part, right?
Great, awesome. Ashok, if you are still online, can you share about your role and the scale of Britannia? It's one of the oldest companies, and I had a Britannia biscuit with tea in this morning.
Nice. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And good morning, everybody. My name is Ashok Kumar. I look after the supply chain replenishment planning right up to delivery to our customers. So, and particularly in the kind of context of digitization, internet, etc., we want to be clear that we are ahead of the curve. And I'm able to work with companies like PepsiCo, Reckitt Benckiser, etc. In terms of our scale, I want to just talk about, like any other FMCG, we are having a direct and indirect coverage of about um, 10 million 10 million outlets, okay, which is basically the retail shops. But our direct coverage or my customer outreaches to about 3.5 distributors, which is spread across the country, which is the general trade, and about 500 odd modern trade or organized trade, which is about 10% of the business.
Wow.
And we got freight spends upwards of 500, 600 crores, and that makes it very relevant for us to adopt and embrace technology and see how we can use this whole digitization to drive efficiency. We'll talk about it later during the course of the conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Abhijit, you want to go next and talk about how you're helping these folks and also the scale at what that has grown also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Neil. So, hi everyone. My name is Abhijit. I lead sales for Southeast Asia and India, based out of here Technology Singapore office. I think the last few quarters, 4, 5, 6 quarters, the topic or the subject of scale has probably taken a different meaning altogether. So in terms of the number of consumers who are now consuming goods and services across various cities and various countries, timing, etc., is very, very different. So our job as a location technology provider is to kind of support this kind of a phenomenal transformation which has happened, what we see around us, and supporting all these platforms, what Mayank manages or what Ashok was talking about, providing that kind of a tech support. What has also happened for us as a company is these kind of need is not limited to a certain country or probably few cities of a certain country. Our scale has gone much beyond the obvious top cities and obvious metro cities. It's gone much beyond those cities, and that's kind of helped. We're helping these platforms. So more during our discussion, Neil.
Sure, absolutely. That was a good primer from all of you. Kangrui, how are you seeing the market in terms of scale? You do all these market sizing activities, right? And you can also quickly introduce yourself, your coverage area.
Sure, thanks, Neil. So my name is Kangrui. I'm an industry analyst at ABI Research. And so at a very high level, I deal with wireless technology and applications of wireless technology. And one of the areas of coverage that I've been covering is location technology. I've been looking at the digital map market in APAC, how that has been evolving. I'm also looking at downstream technology that helps transport and logistics and last mile delivery, things like telematics, ADAS, and also on the business front as well, which is O2O platforms and fleet management systems. And so, I guess you can say the APAC region is really waking up to location technology and the power of digital mapping. We've been seeing a lot of countries like Malaysia, like India, finding out really just finding out the power of using location technology, GIS, in enabling their platforms, using the data and the artificial intelligence to optimize routes, efficiencies, connect deliveries and bring the sort of granularity of information into the visibility of supply chain. So looking forward to the to this panel session.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. That's a great stage set, I think, for our discussion. We all know where we all come from and how important location is being to drive all these different logistics demand, which is growing really fast. So talking about demand, so for logistics and for all these growth of O2O services, last mile delivery, which we're talking about, right? There are multiple challenges, right? It's not just about supply and demand. It's also about inbound logistics, but also outbound logistics, right? So talking about that, with this pandemic, there has been a lot of challenges which we are seeing, which were not before, right? A lot of different enterprises have not been geared up or ready to embrace this amount of flow, right? So from that perspective, maybe I can ask Mr. Ashok first, how you're seeing how things have changed since the pandemic in terms of the growth of our demand, and at the same time, what challenges have you faced or are facing to supply that or cater to that demand?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil. Essentially, the fundamental shift in this whole piece during the consumer, the end consumer, and the shift in their buying patterns. What that means is, I'll just elaborate a bit. What that means is, suppose we were doing about a 90 or 85% general trade and a 15% organized trade. Within that, probably e-com was about 3 or 4%. We have seen a shift in the exponential growth in the e-com piece. I'll just contextualize how it is relevant to this discussion. With the market shifting and e-com or organized trade shifting in a big way. In this case, it is organized trade. In this case, e-com. What happens is the visibility becomes very important. Understanding where the product is, because these guys are all very, very organized, unlike a general trade distributor, where you can service during the day, anytime during the day. And when you come to a party like an Amazon or Flipkart, or a big basket for that matter, there are appointment slots, and these slots are very important to be honored. Otherwise, they will give it to somebody else, and then you go into a different cycle. So, visibility, on track monitoring of goods and tracking from order to delivery is very important. So that is one big shift I've seen in the thing during the pandemic. The second one is the demand for us to be more nimble-footed in terms of inventory, and I'll tell you how that correlates with the subject of what we're discussing. Again, understanding where the products are, because we have let's say safety stocks, in our system, at least the primary system, which is basically to hedge for uncertainties, right? And one of the times where we can have that luxury of safety stocks in the pandemic context was basically it was scarce, right? Things were very scarce, and labor force was scarce, so products scarce. So it's important to convert everything what we have, and from that point of view, availability of information, availability of where the product is, and turning around had become a very, very important factor. So I'm sure the pandemic will go, but I think there are a lot of learnings which are there from that, which will help us build that efficiency and we have set our standards higher as we got into the second wave and third wave and all that. Because the problems are not really that bad as what it was in the first wave, but I think we have set our standards higher and said that if we could do this during the first wave using technology, might as well use that and leverage and enable technology adoption, enable internet tracking, vehicle tracking, etc., and become a better and more efficient business model. So that's a fundamental shift I think which is there in this, right? In our kind of an industry.
Correct. That's great. Yeah, means with FMCG has such a wide spread of distribution offline and to scale quickly to supply to the e-commerce, which has been the only available distribution point, right? Is to pivoting to that
Absolutely.
is not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great. Mayank, to you next. So similar issues you might have also faced with the surge in orders, right, during the pandemic, and still it's surging. And looking at what your peers in the industry are receiving in terms of IPOs, right? So, can you talk about the challenges which you faced when there was such a surge, and how did you uh, maybe we can talk about solution later, but mostly about challenges first.
Got it. So, I think for Swiggy, right, there's a lot of, it's very, very different for Swiggy compared to other e-commerce companies because of the very narrow window that we have to deliver food, right? Typically, when you order from an Amazon or a Flipkart, right, you expect the order to come next day or maybe 2 days later or something, right? When you order food, you expect it to happen within 30 minutes, right? And so, within the 30 to 45 minutes, if things go wrong, then people start getting both hungry and angry, right? Because one wish follows the other, right? So you have very, very narrow margins in order to try and retrieve or recover the order. Right? Now, in that scenario, in the pandemic, what we saw two things kind of happening, right? One was different cities, almost at a city level, or different even zones within a city would shut down and have different operating hours. Curfews would be imposed at 9 p.m. in one place. It would be imposed then at 11 p.m. in another place. In others, you couldn't even operate except for essential personnel and stuff, right? So in those cases where your the city shut down earlier and they didn't allow it, you'd see this entire demand compress into a shorter time frame, right? So instead of having to deliver a few thousand orders over a 4-hour time span, you have to people would start ordering earlier, and you have to suddenly deliver those few thousand orders in only a 2 hour time span, right? So those kind of surges are very hard to smoothen out in this business, and having drivers come and surge up and down dynamically is also pretty hard, right? On technology side, while you can scale your systems up and down within a few minutes, you can't really spawn new human beings within a few minutes, right? And the real-time nature of that means that our prediction systems have to be a lot more dynamic, accurate. Our systems have to deal with the fact that we may have run out of drivers and therefore can't service our customers. And what are the options we give to people in those times, right? As the stress on the system increases, where the demand far outstrips the supply, how do we do that, right? The second challenge that we ran into operationally was that in a pandemic situation when most of the cities are shut or we don't want to call people over to in offices in a crowded area and stuff, onboarding of drivers and making sure that we have the right checks for the drivers and this thing is also has to be done in a completely distributed and automated manner, right? So entire onboarding of drivers, training of drivers, all of it has to be done completely online. So we made the onboarding process self-service. We did the background checks in an automated manner. Training was through contextual videos and stuff. Right?
Wow. That's a lot of change and a lot of transformation for you guys, right? Where you have offline to online, but now it's almost online to online in everything on the backend part of So Abhijit, you have seen you have a more 360-degree view, talking to serving so many different customers like Mayank and Ashok, right? So what are your takes? You were earlier talking about consumer behavior changing, right? Can you talk more about how you are seeing the challenges which you hear from your customers?
Yeah. So what we've seen as Mayank was giving some examples here. So we see challenges the supply side and the demand side, both the side and the entire ecosystem on the supply side and the demand side. So when the platforms are trying to kind of match this kind of a surge and this kind of a complexity, which is kind of a bit unpredictable at some point of time. For example, suddenly a city is going in a lockdown, and then certain areas of the cities you can't really go through or pass through because of the the zoning of the cities. And then our employees are not able to kind of go to production areas. So these are all real-time challenges, and many business processes, what we've heard from our customers, were not really ready, or they had to be kind of a stress test, right? Because they had to kind of completely innovate and change literally on the go. So the pulse which we picked up from various customers were that how we can help them to transform their processes, or their processes is getting more and more digital. So for example, from a production facility to how effectively or efficiently those goods and services can go to their, say, point of sale, or we can support, say, a consumer who not necessarily is in a particular part of the city, which could be pop or not be popular for a food delivery perspective. Now suddenly there's become active, right? And what it means is, do we have the right set of information of that part of the city? Do we have the city digitally covered, right? Do we have the right kind of address captured? So it's a kind of a last mile becomes a very, very important mile in that journey, where it's a consumer touch point, it's a moment of truth. But it's also important so that these platforms, like what Mayank runs, is also fully trusted. Because it needs to be trusted by their supply partners or delivery partners and the consumer. So in summary, it's been unprecedented. We're seeing these conversations has been more active with how we can support to transform digitally, and it's kind of a work with our customer through that journey, and supporting it.
Got it. Interesting, very interesting. So, Kangrui, back to you. Where do you see the challenges are in your research for different companies, right? Whether it's last mile delivery or inbound logistics, or where do you see the different challenges in your research?
Well, I would say, I mean, putting in the context of India at a very high level, right? You when you look at India's consumer behavior, I think many of you have very rightly pointed out and noticed the shift in behavior, right? India has one of the largest, world's largest average smartphone usage per time used per user, right? And it's over 90% of this is 4G traffic, right? And so the Indian consumers are becoming much more dependent on having goods brought to them, right? And that's just one thing. Another thing is that the pandemic and lockdown has already created a change in the consumer behavior to become more online, and therefore retailers and platform providers have to provide that kind of granularity in supply chain visibility for the customers, right? And this is a whole new hurdle to overcome, right? You need to have you need to track the vehicles, you need to track the goods, you need to have a network operation center that holds all of this together. You need a base map, a digital map, a whole system to be able to track all of these things in real time and communicate that to the customer, right? And this is something that we do see happening in the rest of the region in APAC. We see this happen. We see China doing this quite effectively in China. But one thing interesting about India that I noticed, at least, is that when I was looking into it, actually one of the major cities that are contributing to the growth of e-commerce volume in India are the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, not so much the tier 1s, right? And so the thing is, while tier 2 and tier 3 cities are contributing to this e-commerce volume, the thing about these cities is that they don't really have much dense traffic. So one of the problems maybe is not really so much on traffic congestion, but how do you reduce costs when you want to deliver to sparse populations, right? Because you deliver sparse populations, if you're not using an effective, efficient route optimization system, you know, you can go around circles. You know, you can waste a lot of fuel, make a lot of empty trips, you know, and you increase the cost. And also rural, you know, one problem of more rural areas is also that the fulfillment centers are also more sparse. You know, you don't have, you know, you have perhaps poorer quality of address data. You perhaps have roles that are not met, right? And so, you know, there's so many challenges to overcome in order to try to really meet the needs of this you know, ever evolving e-commerce landscape in India. You know, another thing special about the pandemic is also the growth of contactless deliveries, right? And so, you know, how do you manage that as well? You need to have a place whereby you say that, okay, I will deliver you know, a bulk of goods here, and then the consumers, you can come over here, come over and take this, you know. And all of this is really tied in by the idea of connectivity, IoT, you know, which really is a challenge when you think about the infrastructure that has to be deployed, you know, in terms of maybe LTE first, and also the kinds of transformation that every company has to go undergo to upgrade their systems to be more connected to the internet.
Correct. Great. Thank you very much. The good thoughts and quite relevant in India context. Obviously, the growth has obviously not maxed out, I would say, in tier ones, but obviously tier 2, tier 3 are growing on a faster base. As you see Flipkarts and Amazon of the world serving more and more zip codes every month, every quarter, right? And I was just saying, like we were discussing before the discussion started, that almost, according to our research, almost 50%, almost half of the phones, smartphones are sold online in India, actually. So that is huge, right? Because it's contributing to highest GMVs. And it's very difficult to deliver a phone, maybe a 10,000 rupees or 15,000 rupees or a 1 lakh rupee phone to, as you said, like zip codes, which are quite far, and the margins on the phones are even lower, right? Except if you are Apple company. So in that sense, it's a challenge. I would say as you expand more into tier 2, tier 3 cities, but at the same time, those are logistic challenge. But in tier 1 cities, there is also last mile challenge. And to Mayank's point, the time window for some services provision is very small, and that gives that adds to challenge more. So we talked about challenges, and we see that different challenges for different customers, different enterprises, different sectors, right? So Abhijit, maybe I can pick your brains on how you are helping these different companies, right, in technologically to solve these challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of key points which we picked up during last few minutes or 20 odd minutes, right? So one is the scale, which is being absolutely unprecedented. The second is the demand side, and as well as the challenges around the supply side. So if you take all of these elements and look at where we support and when we have been supporting, is starting with making the digital map available in these cities and these countries, and especially from India context. So we are available like a maps is available across various cities and thousands of the towns and the cities. That's point number one. Secondly, there are these solutions which is smart algorithms for routing purposes, traffic enabled routing. The last mile addressing, which is the way the addressing is done in India, is very unique and very always reference to a landmark or reference to an information which is more static. So having those set of information in our database, and also routing enabled through those information. And also most important part is we have this location platform where we give a workspace where multiple aggregators who have the location information, they can use that platform to kind of create, co-create, and kind of take advantage of the location information, which could be very specific to a particular customer. Many customers have certain specific requirement. And then also we have in platform, the marketplace, where if there is location data which is useful for certain application, can also be used by another customers. Like for example, EV is an example. Our routing is EV charging aware. So what we're trying to do is kind of looking at the entire value chain in terms of from where the goods are being picked up and where it is being delivered, and giving and supporting the platforms and the companies. So that has been our play to support from technical or location technology perspective.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been tracking this industry for a decade now, and here is a leading location platform provider and how the company has grown from just providing maps to location intelligence to now data with workspace and marketplace to help different companies to work together, use the data and services, cross-sell, and so no one reinvents the wheel, right? Basically.
Exactly.
So that is quite powerful, the growth story and how you guys are helping. So completely agree on the technological bits which you provide, which will help different companies. So going back to Mayank, you talked about overnight transformation to online, right? Doing everything online, right from training the force to also dynamically changing according to surges. So how fast, what are the different bits required in that sense to solve these kind of problems? So how did you actually achieve this?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been an ongoing journey, not really overnight, but given that we are in 500 different cities, right? Each of them have different characteristics, both geospatial characteristics like time and speed differences and stuff, right? A lot of our systems, are heavily dependent on data science models and AI, right? Like Swiggy is an AI first company, and trying to learn what the right time promises are, what the right distances are, speeds are, and stuff, right? And throughout our entire journey, we use AI in a number of things, right? So we use AI for predicting the demand and therefore how many drivers we will need, but also what's the right mix of drivers, right? How many do we need for lunch versus how many do we need for dinner, and how many need to be full-time versus part-time, right? The challenge is if you have too few drivers, then you're you're losing business. If you have too many drivers, then they aren't earning enough, and they will attrit from the platform, right? So you have to protect both the earnings and the order, and so you have to get the number right for even the demand is kind of curvy, right? The second thing is from an efficiency standpoint, because the average order value is in the hundreds for food, right? It's not you don't really see people ordering in the like a smartphone in the thousands, right? So because of that, you need to make sure that you're as efficient as possible. Assignment algorithms, for example, need to run every 2 minutes because again of the narrow time window. And in those 2 minutes, they are evaluating almost like 4 million edges of orders to drivers to try and find the optima, right? And in that time window of 2 minutes, it's an NP hard problem, right? So you can't really find a global optima. You have to keep finding better and better local optimas. And each city, because they have different characteristics, will have different thresholds and tuning ratios in terms of what algorithms need, right? In some sense, Swiggy has now reached a point where even the traditional AI models have giving diminishing returns, and we've switched over to a lot of deep learning models to continue to gain efficiency, right? And that's showing pretty promising results. The second thing is that because of again the tight time windows, for us we use location technologies not just from providers, but we have a lot of our own data of drivers, as drivers travel, right? We get the ping data of drivers, and we've actually started using that to identify not just the society complexes and boundaries, but where the gates are, right? So we can direct the driver to the gate. Right now, because of the scale at which we operate, we have thousands of drivers joining us every week who are completely new. They may be new to that area, they may be new to the platform, and so just telling them this is the pin location to go to may or may not work, right? If you can direct them to where the gate is, where the parking is, it improves the efficiency with which they can move.
Correct.
Right. If you have a 40-minute window, or if you have a 30-minute window in which to deliver orders, if you save 5 minutes of the driver's time by doing all these things, then you you effectively got like a 16% gain in the number of orders you can do in the same time, right? So I think these are a number of challenges that we leverage technology for in order to solve for these issues.
Awesome. That's great. And as Mayank said, it's not about overnight transformation; it's a journey. Mr. Ashok, how do you see location technologies helping Britannia, and how much have you adopted? How much you have transformed in adopting these location platforms, integrating it within your CRMs, or like Mayank team is using a lot of algorithms, right, to optimize routes, optimize efficiencies. So, do you see similar technology being adoption in your vertical as well?
Nilesh, thanks. I actually got logged out for about a couple of minutes. So ours is a B2B kind of a business.
Yeah.
Unlike in other cases where it's B2C, and very high, right, in terms of hungry and angry kind of customers and all that. We are also we are also having our share of the thing. But however, having said that, I think it's getting increasingly important to do this location tracking and things like that. So there are 2 or 3 areas I'm going to talk about. Might have got covered because I was out of the so one is route optimization, right? So milk run and route optimization is one of the very important factors which we have adopting, and we can't do that without technology. So we have been doing this with our brick and mortar kind of a model where we have fixed routes and all that. But dynamic routing as an important enabler for us to deliver the our last mile. Our last mile is not from our. So we have multiple tiers of distribution. Our last mile is basically from our DCs to the distributor.
Correct.
Okay. And so technology adoption and doing route optimization is one of the biggest enablers we are trying to use, and we use technology for that. Second important area is so let's talk about the barriers a bit in terms of what are the issues. The issue is that smartphones, however well it exploded, there are some difficulties in some people using it, etc. And what we are doing is using technology. We are now using SIM tracking and stuff like that for location, and making sure that with limited use of technology, we can at least manage location tracking and provide signals to them in terms of if we get a signal from our customer, how do you translate this? And we also are able to track and trace. Third thing is on technology, using technology is the wait time. So one of the biggest barriers, not barriers, it's one of the biggest waste in our businesses. It's actually a national situation. The wait time, the queue time, or the idle time of equipment. So the turnaround of equipment. So it helps in terms of understanding how much time it's waiting, how much time is taking from one stop to another stop, and attacking it constructively. If it's people, then address the issues for people. If it's traffic routes, etc., we address that separately. So what we are doing is we are doing a slew of initiatives using and using let's say we call it the transport management system. It's while it's got many features, one of the important features in going on, measure and so we have embraced it in a big way, and unlike my co-panelists, ours is a very B2B. Okay, so that's a point I'm wanting to make as far as technology adoption is concerned.
Got it. That's great. We have a few questions. I think we covered a lot of challenges and how you guys are implementing. So one of the questions which I can pick up is how do companies rely on external supply chain consultants to improve the supply chain compared to using internal expertise? So very relevant question. How much do you actually outsource versus in-house, right? So anyone of you can go first, maybe Mayank or Ashok.
Sure. So I think for the most part, a lot of our core systems are in-house. Like, the actual location, the map routing and stuff is something we rely on Google for at this point of time. As we are getting more and more data, right, we are increasingly switching even that over to in-house. Because we have just far better data in terms of two-wheeler traffic and how our drivers are in particular complexes and stuff, right? So I think from that perspective, we've depended on Google for like the distance, the distance between this thing and some of the time, which was being enhanced by our location platform team, right? We also rely on vendors like for the training videos and content creation and serving that up, right? That's not really a core competency that we want to invest in. What we would rather do is say that, hey, given these different videos, right, within the context of the order, for example, if we know that the driver is handling a cash on delivery order for the first time, then we can trigger that video and show them how to handle that, right, when they are waiting at the restaurant. So we do rely on external partners for things like this. But for the most part, it's in-house at Swiggy.
Wow. Okay. Mr. Ashok, how much is outsourced? How much is in-source? Can you hear us?
Is it for me? The question's for me?
Yeah. I mean, so you can give a quick thought.
I couldn't. Can you just repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Yeah, the question was how much of the work from in terms of technology integration as well as the logistics is outsourced versus in-source.
So in our case, mostly it's outsourced.
Yeah.
So the one advantage is we can get the best of what is available in the market and work on that. But we have the only thing we need to have technology adapters to make sure that it's working seamlessly. Otherwise, it will all follow, right? But mostly it's outsourced as far as we are concerned.
That's great. So yeah, this was a great discussion. We have talked about all the challenges which we are facing from B2B, B2C side of things. And then we have Abhijit also talked about how your platform and similar location technology intelligence can help improve. And also great thoughts from Kangrui on what are the different challenges and what he sees from research point of view. Thank you very much, everyone. Hand it over to Sejam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. That was amazing coordination and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for an engaging discussion. Special thanks to all the panelists and the moderator for being here and making this possible today. And another thanks goes out to all the attendees who are here with us today. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll be back in a while with the next session. Please stay tuned.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.